The Only Good Priest. Tom and Scott Mystery, Book 3. Author Mark Richard Zubro, St. Martin's Press, New York. Narrator Eric Aust. Chapter 10. They used no lights. For a few seconds I wondered why. I guessed because they still feared detection and couldn't risk random flashings which might be observable from outside. I listened at the steps and heard no sound from below. "Jerry, is there another way out?" I asked in a whisper. "I don't know," he said. "Sorry. Maybe on the ground floor. I was pretty confused when they dragged me up here." Ominous shadows moved in the darkness down the corridor toward us. We rushed down the stairs, Scott in the lead, Jerry in the middle, and me bringing up the rear. The darkness kept us from full speed, but our eyes were accustomed enough to the dark to make decent progress down a flight of stairs and into the third-floor corridor. Silence reigned in front of us, but there was a thunder of pursuit above us. At the top of the landing, we paused for a second. Still nothing. From the steps below, down we hurried toward the second floor and the exit. The darkness and our need for haste produced the disaster that followed. 1 second, I felt steps beneath my feet. Then from in front, I heard Scott say, "Oh, shit!" along with assorted curses from numerous other voices. I didn't have time to stop or attempt to retreat. I tripped over Jerry and sprawled into a mass of struggling bodies. I couldn't tell how many of them assaulted us. I wasn't even sure which way to punch. Fortunately, they were similarly hampered. Random elbows, feet, fists, and fingers probed and gouged. I heard voices calling from just a few feet above us, reinforcements for them. "Jerry!" I yelled. "Here!" I heard his voice not more than a foot away on my right. I groped in the darkness and grabbed his arm. "Scott!" I yelled and heard only grunts from an answer. My lover's indistinguishable from the others. The troops from above clattered into us. I managed to keep a grip on Jerry, but it limited my ability to fight. I managed to claw my way down and off the stairs. For a second, the mass of bodies parted right in front of me. Walter Payton slicing through an opposing team in his glory days was as nothing compared to the moves I made then. I kept hold of Jerry. Moments later, free of the mingling mob, we raced down the second-floor corridor. For a few seconds, they didn't pursue. "Where are they?" I heard total fury in Priscilla's voice. I wanted to turn back to make sure Scott was safe. Then I heard his voice, I thought from a distance, perhaps the stairs. "Run!" he yelled. "I'll meet you outside!" "Never!" Priscilla bellowed, and the chase was on. The corridor ended at a right-angle turn. My feet slipped briefly at the sharpness of the turn, but I steadied my hand on the wall. I felt more than saw Jerry next to me. This hall ended in a door with a broken exit sign above it. On the other side of it, I tried to find something to jam it shut. No luck. The stairs led down, hands pulled on the knob, trying to yank it out of my hand. I held tight fist, began to pound on the door. "Keep going," I ordered Jerry. "Where?" he panted. Sometimes I wish he wasn't as independent and stubborn as his uncle. I could barely see his features in the dark, but I caught the glint of his eyes. I didn't want to hold this position too long. I feared they knew other ways to come up behind us. I turned the knob. Instead of resisting the next furious shake from the other side, I shoved the door inward. I heard curses, yells, and falling bodies. Jerry and I turned and ran. Down the last flight of stairs, we flew on the ground floor of the old bank. We turned to the main doors. A moment's inspection confirmed the view from outside, solidly boarded up and tightly nailed shut. Into the main lobby, to the left, were the old teller's windows, serrated blocks of fake marble, dust-encrusted and empty to the right. Occasional mounds of debris were all that remained of where bank offices once sat. Sounds of pursuit came from the front. Desperately, we hunted for a rear exit. Finally, in the darkness at the back, we faced two gaping doorways. Neither emitted any light. We chose the one on the right. After a short hall, steps abruptly started down. I didn't like this, but we couldn't go back. As we reached the bottom of the stairs, a faint glow began to show. Ahead of us, outdoor light, I hoped. We rushed past a series of cubicles with frosted glass walls that reached 3/4 of the way to the ceiling. The light grew. "I don't like this," I said. It felt wrong. We had to be in a basement. I couldn't imagine where the glow came from. We turned a corner. The vault of the old bank gaped at us. The door leaned against the wall on our right, unhinged and crumbling. A prosaic floor lamp gave enough light for us to see sleeping bags, a couple of folding chairs, clothes strewn on the floor, a hot plate piled with a few miniature pots and pans. Bad choice. The enemy appeared at the opening behind us, Stephanie and Priscilla, walking slowly toward us. Two other women stood in the doorway. I wondered if one of them was the terrorist. Priscilla began. "Give up." I launched myself at Stephanie, aiming to push her into the woman at the door. "Run!" I yelled to Jerry. In seconds, I was in the middle of a flailing mob of bodies. No high school, college, or pro football pile-up could match it for closeness, violence, or pain. For an instant, I managed to get on my feet. I glanced around for Jerry, didn't see him, and took a step to run. Too late. Priscilla grabbed my right leg. I toppled over. Stephanie got a large chunk of her body on top of my chest. I felt searing pain, bellowed, then passed out. I woke, staring up at a light. I hurt all over. I tried to move my left arm. Pain leaped up and down my side. I tried my right arm. I could barely move it, but the pain wasn't as great. Despite the agony, I ordered my feet to move. I heard a groan, realized it was me. I managed to bend my legs at the knee and got my feet flat on the floor. I turned my head to the right and saw wall. I tried to the left. Stephanie sat there with a 2x4 in her massive paws. She lowered it to my knee caps and tapped gently against their apex. "Lower, or I break them," she said. I eased my knees back down. "He come around, Stephanie?" I lowered my chin and saw the top third of another woman. Stephanie grunted a yes. "If he moves, sit on him. Crush every bone in his fucking body." This woman wore a black warm-up outfit. Lying on the ground, I had a distorted view of her height, but I thought she must be the short woman we followed 3 nights ago. "Did they get the other two?" Stephanie asked. "No, they're gone. We've got to blow this dump in minutes." Priscilla insisted on one last look through. Stupid. That kind of decision would cost a good unit valuable time and lives. Less than a minute later, all 6 women assembled in the little room. 3 of them began rapid packing. Their swift work led me to believe they must have practiced drills. Now I knew how they had moved so fast out of their church hideout, and all the chaos Prentice did not appear. The little shit had escaped again. Priscilla had come in last. She and the woman in black stood in the doorway, arguing. The others ignored them. "Your goddamn brother led them here," the woman said. Priscilla stabbed a finger at her. "Just like you did at the church, Sally?" "I was protecting you," the other snapped. Stephanie stood up. Much to my surprise, she walked up to the other 2, grabbed them each by the back of the neck, and bonked their heads together. Both women bellowed and tried to assume defensive postures. Stephanie kept her grip. "They can hear this bitch fit all the way from the loop. You can fight later. Now get your goddamn shit together. We're leaving in half a minute." She flung each woman away from her and turned to me. Her bulk looked even more enormous from where I lay. She lumbered over and peered down. Almost involuntarily, I tried to hunch away. I couldn't completely stifle the moan of agony the pain caused. "Do we bust him some more? Kill him? Leave him? Or what?" Stephanie asked the room at large. I surveyed the woman, all of whom looked at Priscilla. "Kill him," Sally said. "Not yet. Bring him along," Priscilla ordered. Her leadership prevailed. I passed out once during the drag and shuffle as they forced me up to the second-floor exit. The shove out the window caused maddening pain, severe enough to keep me from passing out again. Fortunately, I landed on my right side on top of the dumpster. Wildly swirling snow lashed my face as I attempted to rise. The yank from the dumpster into a waiting van was more painful. They tossed me, their sleeping bags, and assorted belongings on the cold metal floor in the back of the van. I lay gasping for breath, never imagining such pain could exist. I thought playing football in high school and for a year in college had inured me to pain, but this was incredible. Doors slammed, the interior of the van darkened, we began to move. "Back up the alley, not down," a voice ordered. "I'm trying," Priscilla said. I heard the whir of tires stuck in snow. Where were Scott and reinforcements? Maybe he and Jerry were still hidden in the building. "Rock it back and forth," Sally commanded. "What the fuck do you think I'm trying to do?" Priscilla snarled. Seconds of worrying passed. "Get out and push," came the sharp command from in front. Stephanie and the others piled out. Moments later, the van began to inch forward. With them preoccupied, I tried boosting myself to my knees. The upward movement and the rocking van caused me to slip. Grasping my left side with my right hand, I barely managed to keep from screaming in agony. I heard shouts from outside. Doors flew open. They all piled back in. The van slewed left, straightened, and began to move. Stephanie saw me halfway up, gave me a friendly smile, and tapped 2 fingers against my left side. I cried out and collapsed in pain. "What's that?" I heard through the haze of pain. "The macho hero wanted more," Stephanie snickered, then took some rope from around a sleeping bag and tied my hands. From the floor, I could make out occasional streetlights. The going seemed extremely slow. "How deep do you think the snow is?" one of the women in back asked. 4 inches, maybe more," came an answer. "It's drifting badly," Stephanie said. "We won't get far. Where are we going?" Silence as we all strained to hear from the front seat. "How the fuck should I know?" Priscilla said. "Good planning, sister," Sally snickered. A small woman in her 50s who hadn't spoken before leaned forward from the third back seat nearest to me. "Where did that kid come from? How come only some of us knew about him? I joined this group for sisterhood, protest, and righteousness, not to cover up somebody's stupid mistakes." "This whole thing has been one stupid mistake after another," Sally said. "Then why don't you go back where you came from?" Priscilla said. "We're sick of you and your terrorist expertise shit. Go back to fucking boys and selling out your womanhood. The only kind of pro you are is the kind that walks the streets." In a voice that demanded attention, Stephanie said, "Where are we going?" Silence. She spoke again. "We can worry about political correctness later. Where are we going?" "The newspaper," was Priscilla's curt reply. They fought about the advisability of that until the van sideswiped what I guessed was a series of cars, and silence reigned for several minutes. Listening to the murmur of the tires over snow gave me an odd perspective. Priscilla, our driver, wasn't used to winter weather. She alternately sped ahead and rode the brakes, slipping and sliding in a variety of directions, often punctuating the more sudden jolts with shouts and curses at opposing drivers. If the snow was continuing to fall at anything like the rate I'd caught a glimpse of, roads that hadn't already begun to close soon would. Between bouts of pain, I worried about Monica sleeping at the paper. Would they find her? For 10 minutes of badgering, Priscilla evaded the answer as to why she needed to stop at the newspaper. It took a near mutiny and a particularly violent jolt and swerve for her to say, "Money! We fucking well have to pay for food and gas, don't we?" This brought silence. My head rocked back and forth in a wide groove on the metal floor. Heat from the surrounding bodies, more than the feeble puffs of warmth coming from the van's heating system, was melting the ice and snow underneath me. The dampness had reached the back of my head and soaked my right pant leg from calf to butt. The snow hadn't filled in Chicago's famed potholes. Each rumble over one caused pain to sear through my chest. As rigid as I tried to hold myself, I couldn't prevent damp pain and misery. Any escape was far beyond my capability. I hoped Scott and Jerry had got away in time. Unfortunately, it seemed so had we. At the newspaper, they engaged in an interminable debate as to who should go inside, who should stay with the van, and what to do with me. Finally, Stephanie said, "For Christ's sake, let's take a vote like we always do and be done with it." All of them going inside past 5 to 1, carrying me along past 4 to 2. I wished it had lost. They tied a scarf around my entire face to muffle any noise I might try to make. Good thing, because unmuffled, my screams as they jostled me out of the van and then up the stairs would have been enough to wake the ghost voters of Chicago. I only passed out once. Inside, Stephanie propped me between herself and a wall. I didn't have the strength to fight her. I concentrated on breathing easily to keep the pain under control. A major squabble broke out upstairs. I accidentally began an exasperated breath, which came to a painful halt. There were several loud thumps as of furniture being rudely tossed aside. Moments later, 2 heavily bundled figures hurried toward us down the narrow interior stairs. "What's up?" Stephanie said. One of them said, "We quit. They're nuts. "We're going back to Boston." "Stop them!" came her harrowing shriek from the top of the stairs. The two women scuttled out the door. In the middle of the recriminations, charges, and countercharges, they let slip the fact that they'd found someone in the building. I feared it was Monica. Moments later, the appearance of the bruised and battered newspaper owner confirmed this. They tied her hands. Her open mink coat revealed her evening gown draped in tatters on her body. She glared at her captors, but gave me a rueful look and a half-smile. They shoved her toward me, telling us both to sit. The push tipped her off balance. She stumbled and landed on top of me. I howled in agony. They ignored us and piled into the composing room, which was on this floor. Stephanie stood in the doorway and ignored us. From the occasional crashes, it sounded as if they were breaking every piece of furniture in the place. From what they said, it turned out Priscilla was having trouble finding her hidden stash. She complained that in the cleanup after the last break-in, someone had moved her stuff. Our sarcastic terrorist, who talked in an incongruously high little girl's whine, voiced mounting contempt and sarcasm at Priscilla's ineptitude. Meanwhile, Monica, realizing my pain, did as much as was possible with her hands tied to ease my discomfort. She asked what happened, but a snarl from Stephanie put a halt to that. Stephanie did not move to stop what happened next. A deadly silence was broken briefly when Priscilla and Sally exchanged brutal accusations, and then the fight was on. The smashing and crashing of various objects were the only sounds that emanated from the ominously silent foes. The brief battle ended in a triumphant screech. "Money!" someone yelled. I guess the tumbling of a piece of furniture had revealed the hiding place. Stephanie forestalled any renewal of hostilities by a simple suggestion. "Let's go!" They almost left without a vote or a debate, but they had to decide what to do with us. Eventually, Monica and I lay together on the floor in back of the van. Priscilla sat in the seat nearest us. Sally took the wheel. In the brief trip from building to van, between bouts of pain, I thought the storm had picked up in intensity. They were in trouble. If they thought they could make a daring escape by van, the slipping and sliding on the city streets was worse than before. Priscilla gave directions on getting from Lakeshore Drive to the Stevenson Expressway. I didn't think we hit speeds higher than 20 miles an hour. My perspective only let me see occasional passing street lamps, lighting the wind-driven snow. It hurt too much to raise my arm to see my watch, but it had to be nearly dawn. I found that if I relaxed my muscles as much as possible, while avoiding any movement, the pain was manageable. This was a hell of a trick. I could do it up to 75% of the time. "Priscilla, what the hell is going on?" Monica said. "Tell them to shut the fuck up," said the terrorist from the front. So Priscilla talked, knowing her rival couldn't leave the will to fight. She jerked a thumb at me and said, "Pretty boy here and his jerk lover broke up our last hiding place. I have friends in St. Louis who'll keep us safe and be able to dispose of the prisoners without any trouble." "Can't we work something out?" Monica asked, taking a shot in the dark, and speaking between painful gasps, I said, "She and Prentice killed Sebastian. That's why they kidnapped Jerry." "I don't believe it. What possible reason could they have?" Monica said. "That gets a little complicated, but I've got the time to explain," Priscilla said. "And since you'll be dead soon anyway, I don't mind telling you." Monica stared in shock. Priscilla rubbed her gloved hands together almost gleefully. "It all started when we planned our revolutionary activities," she said. "We got a tirade about the male establishment, patriarchal stupidity, and the evilness of the world in general. Our problem came when we trusted another man," she sighed. "Prentice, as you know, is my brother. He and I were close as children. I felt sorry for him, plus he agreed." "To what?" I asked. Suddenly the van lurched, swayed, spun, horns blared, and I saw the top of a semi-rumble past inches from the windows on the left side of the van. Infighting, recriminations, and finally a resumption of movement followed. Priscilla said in a stage whisper, "Some people think they know how to lead this group." She pulled her coat closer around herself. "What did Prentice agree to?" I asked between clenched teeth. The spin had thrown off the rigidly comfortable position I'd managed to achieve. "Hurts, huh? Good, you managed to fuck everything up. But not as badly as dear naive Prentice," she sighed. "He agreed to deliver a package to the Chancery late at night. We told him it was a harmless smoke bomb and it would have been except Sally, our terrorist, isn't as good at making bombs as she claims. Still, we didn't want to kill anyone. If the damn security guard had let the package sit 5 more minutes, there would have been lots of broken glass, tons of smoke, and maybe a little fire. Unfortunately, he didn't. More unfortunately, Bartholomew got suspicious of Prentice. The old son of a bitch had a date with Prentice that night. Once a month, they had sex for half an hour. It's all he could afford after scrimping from his pension each month. And at that, Prentice gave him a discount. She gave a harsh laugh. Bartholomew had told Prentice he loved him. What a joke, the old fool. Prentice decided to be late for their rendezvous that night. The old bastard went looking for him. The old guy was shrewder than you thought, I said. He suspected something and he knew where to go. Priscilla laughed. Nah, he was lucky. He walked in the front door of Bruce's as Prentice walked out the back. Bartholomew's followed, saw the placing of the package. Guessed the contents of the package or the purpose? Monica broke in. And ran for home, Priscilla finished. Monica said, he saw the story about the Chancery bombing in the paper the next day. I remember how excited he was. Now I know why. Excited and blabbermouth. He didn't want to go to the police because he loved Prentice. But he told that goddamn Sebastian, such a fucking goody two-shoes priest, a saint for our times, she snorted. Everybody loved him, running around listening to people, doing good works. Another nasty lurch of the van and pain shot through my side again. They'd crammed their belongings around me tightly, which kept me nearly immobile, an inadvertent kindness that helped keep me from constant agony. My feet were cold. Dampness had crept further into my clothes. As the trip progressed, the inside of the windows had fogged up. I was mostly aware of shadows passing. I presumed the lighter shadows represented passing cars, trucks, or streetlights. Priscilla talked on. Sebastian had gone to Prentice, told him what he knew, urged him to turn himself in. Prentice, not being the brightest, and Sebastian being one of the smartest, figured the prostitute hadn't acted on his own. Prentice blurted out enough of the truth for the priest to guess the lesbians for freedom and dignity were behind it. Priscilla said, Sebastian confronted me. I laughed at him. He didn't get mad. He never did. He looked at me with those pitying, priestly, know-it-all eyes and told me if Prentice and I didn't go to the police, he would. She drew a deep breath, rubbed her hand over the window glass, and glanced out the opening she made. We decided to kill him. Poison in the altar wine. Prentice set up for mass every week. So it was easy. That altar wine tastes like shit anyway. We get cases of that generic crap the archdiocese puts out. Sally had connections to some groups that gave us arsenic. We put some in the altar wine. I'd begun alternately to sweat and shiver. I could no longer distinguish between dampness from the melting snow and sweat from my pain-racked body. I forced my mind to listen to Priscilla's continuing explanation. On Sundays, Prentice had administered the doses Priscilla gave him. She thought it would have acted slower. She shrugged. I was surprised it took effect so soon. Anyway, he died and we thought we were safe. Then old Bartholomew started up again. The bastard got suspicious. He warned Prentice. So he had to die, Monica said. Not quite then, Priscilla replied. Their words came as if from a distance. The pain was all that kept me awake. Each lurch of the van brought me back to full consciousness. Of course, it was this asshole and his pretty lover who screwed things up. She aimed a kick at me. The sleeping bags and other paraphernalia piled around me spoiled her aim. She missed my ribs, but the jolt to my side was almost as bad. I gasped for air for several minutes. She explained that our snooping around had worried them. Our relationship with Bartholomew, especially his trust in us, had caused them to take action. They had wanted to avoid killing him, thinking that another death in the group at this time would be too suspicious. Him and his buddy, she jerked a thumb at me, convinced the old son of a bitch they really cared for him. Bartholomew began to talk about telling them. He got brave enough to threaten Prentice and me together. He had to die. Prentice had lured him to the trap at Faith headquarters. They started the fire at the front and back downstairs exits. I pointed out to most of the members that since we were all conspirators in a murder, whether accidental or deliberate, we'd go to jail just as surely as Prentice. So we decided to grab your nephew to stop you from snooping around. Her tone was ingenious, almost rueful. Things got out of hand. Ultimately, we didn't know what to do with the kid. We didn't tell the milquetoast in the group, but I couldn't even convince Stephanie to have him killed. Monica asked, "Why were the Gay Tribune offices trashed?" "Every time you wrote an editorial we disagreed with, the group voted to do it. But you never got the message." "Why'd Prentice tell us so much about you the first time we talked to him?" I asked. "He's a blabbermouth who wants to look big and feel important. He thought we were safe. Thinking is not Prentice's strong suit. He figured he'd give you useless information, and you'd go away." After a jolt from the van and a gasp from me, I managed to ask the next question. "Why'd you threaten Sebastian that Sunday?" "He talked about going to the police again. I was sick of his shit. I knew he'd be dead soon, and I didn't think I'd be overheard." She fell silent. I listened to the tires crunching over under-plowed snow. I was shivering almost continuously now. I could turn my head just enough to look at Monica. She gave me an encouraging smile mixed with sympathy. As encumbered as I was, although without the pain, she couldn't rescue us. Priscilla hummed to herself a toneless sound almost of content and happiness. I dozed between jabs of pain, awakening to colder heat, shivering and sweating. The next time I woke, clearly grayness penetrated the misted windows. Full morning. I glanced toward Monica. Her eyes were closed, her mouth slightly open in sleep. My ribs ached, but almost bearably. "Where are we?" I asked the van at large. Stephanie's voice sounded sleepy. "Pontiac." "We're stopped," I said. "Accident ahead. Must have just happened." "Go around," Priscilla snapped. "We should stop to help," Stephanie said. Priscilla and Sally spoke in unison. "No!" Priscilla said. "We almost hit them because we couldn't see them. Probably nobody can see us from behind either. We've got to get out of here." I heard the rumble as the driver down shifted. "The shoulder's not wide enough," Stephanie said. "Yes, it is," Sally again. I felt the van begin to tilt to the right as we inched along the road. The van slipped for a second, tilted more. Someone swore. "Easy," Stephanie said. We moved forward, continued to tilt. I looked over at Monica, now also awake. When disaster came, it took only seconds. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.